Alrighty everyone, welcome back to another video. This one is going to be very different from the content you are used to seeing on this channel, but I do hope you stick around and give it a listen. Today is the 2-year anniversary of the Witch Queen DLC, so I thought I would come back and give a sort of retrospective analysis of the Witch Queen. I'm here to give an overview of the story, some features that were introduced then, and just some thoughts on the DLC in general. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into this story. Before we even touch the campaign, I think it's important to mention that the Witch Queen herself, Savathun, has been a reoccurring name within the lore for a long time now. Sister to the Taken King himself, Oryx, and the Hive God of War, Xivu Arath, Savathun is one of the main figureheads within the Hive race. Being the god of cunning and trickery, she has deceived many into doing her bidding, including Nokris, a son of Oryx, and ourself the Guardian. Possessing Osiris, she bargained his life in exchange for the successful removal of the worm inside of her, culminating in the Season of the Lost mission, Exorcism. Upon removal of her worm, she returned Osiris to us and disappeared from us. We would not know where she had gone until finding out in the Witch Queen campaign, which brings us there now. We arrive on Mars, which has suddenly reappeared after a year-long absence, being in the clutches of the darkness. Upon arrival, we see these time anomaly zones that display the former golden age of Mars, when the planet was colonized by humanity. Unfortunately, these zones are not utilized a whole lot, however they do tease a unique ability to the darkness that we will learn about later. We see Savathun's flagship, the Lore, which almost bears a resemblance to a certain trade confederation ship. Sorry, getting off track. We also see that the Cabal Empire has spared no time in trying to reclaim Mars as Cabal territory. Beginning to set up artillery to combat the Hive forces, we fight our way through these forces and launch ourselves towards the Lure in a very cool human launching cannon. However, these Cabal are of Kaido's empire, and given that we are currently in an alliance, I doubt she will take kindly to our killing of these Cabal. This is a storyline that is explored in the accompanying Season of the Risen. As we arrive on the deck of Savathun's ship, we see dead Cabal and traces of void light. Not yet entirely understanding, we continue on our way through Savathun's ship. The Hive have a history in experimenting with void light. One example that comes to mind is in the Savathun Song Strike that was available with the launch of Destiny 2. Continuing on, we see for the first time a Hive acolyte with an overshield, granted by a moth made of arc light. We continue seeing more of these moths and a monument with a darkness artifact. Yet as we continue, we see a Hive Knight wielding void light against us, and upon killing it, a ghost spawns, resurrecting it as though it were a guardian. Confused, we slay the knight a second time, although this time forced to crush its ghost to prevent it from resurrecting again. We spend a moment looking at our hand that has just crushed this ghost. And for the first time, we have killed a ghost, the very thing responsible for resurrecting us every time we die. Thankfully, we get over it and continue to crush Lucent ghosts without remorse from here on out. We activate the portal on the ship and go through it, which brings us to Savathun's throne world. The throne world has a very bright and light-filled atmosphere with beautiful structure and well-kept scenery. The castle area of Savathun's throne world is no doubt inspired by the light. She taunts us and, after a battle, expels us from her throne world. Lucky for us, she left the door unlocked and we can just waltz back in. We return to the Enclave on Mars, which is our base of operations, and enter a structure left behind by the darkness. Here, we use the darkness artifact found on Savathun's ship to construct a glaive. This is the first instance of weapon crafting, where we are able to customize the perks on our weapons. Quick flex, I did indeed craft my glaive on launch day, just saying. We return to the throne world in search of answers as to how Savathun stole the light. We discover the power of deep sight, a way of using the darkness to conjure memories of old pathways and structures. Really, it's just to give us extra platforming, but I love how they incorporated this with the darkness as it adds a unique function. We hear a voice that warns us of the dangers in this throne world, and on our way to track this unknown advisor, we encounter the Scorn of the throne world for the first time, battling the Lucent Hive. Here we also see traces of arc light as a Hive Guardian wizard is up next for us to kill. Making our way through, we finally meet this voice and are surprised to see that it comes from a hive ghost by the name of Finch. Our new quote-unquote ally, Finch, tips us off on the location of Sagira's shell, the former ghost of Osiris. We make our way into the quagmire. Wait, what is that? Quagmire? Really? They couldn't have just called it the bog? On our way, encounter the last of the Hive Guardian archetypes, the Acolyte imitating a Solar Hunter. Side note real quick, I like how in the first 3 missions they slowly introduced the Hive Guardians. First Void, then Arc, and then Solar. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's just something I noticed. A dialogue I really enjoyed is between the Ghost and Finch, debating the choice of these lucent ghosts. Our Ghost having real blind judgment, as Finch puts it, lumping all of these ghosts as evil, but then we have a ghost like Finch, who didn't have anywhere else to go or anyone else to turn to, almost like he was indoctrinated into the Hive like a cult. The Scorn really seem to inhabit these dark places of the throne world, which contrasts with the Hive that remain in the Light Castle. There are questions brought up of who is directing these Scorn to come here and fight. No direct answer is given, but the question begins to tease the final boss of the accompanying raid, Vow of the Disciple. It's a pretty intense boss fight down there, fighting what we believed initially to be a Scorn Baron. But this ultimately gives us our first tease towards the ultimate villain of the Light and Darkness saga, giving us the name, The Witness. This mission is actually very interesting in that it takes place on Europa, which doesn't really happen a whole lot where a DLC visits a location in a prior DLC. It really adds to the world building of the game and not just adding in these new destinations for one DLC only. Here we fight Cabal, but these Cabal are not aligned with Kaido like they were prior. These are rogues, seeking treasures from the pyramid. It is possible that they are working for Callus, as his obsession with the darkness is noted by Kaido as an infectious disease plaguing the minds of several Cabal. So we have no problem slaughtering our way through every Cabal present. Along the way, it is further hinted that the Witness may be the one responsible for controlling these pyramid ships. Perhaps it is when they are not in command by a disciple. An ability of the darkness is stated clearly here. The light seems to have an effect of forgetting. When a guardian is resurrected for the first time, they lose all memories of their life prior and begin again. However, the darkness seems to be utilized for remembrance, thus the power of deep sight being used to pull memories of past pathways and signs. We kill the Cabal as they are trying to destroy the statue in the pyramid, which would prevent us from communing with the pyramid and ultimately complete our purpose on the European pyramid. Overall, very cool mission. Not a whole lot in this mission stood out to me. The boss fight has these interesting rays of light that shine through the deep into the darker parts of the throne world. However, I can't really think of any lore reason as to why this is, but it is a very cool gameplay mechanic where when you stand in these pools of light, you regain super energy. This is where the Altar of Reflection is first introduced. This is our way to use our deep sight powers to see the memories associated with an object put forth. In this case, Sagira's shell. However, if you look in the background, you can see a very ominous silhouette of Savathun. But, hopefully nothing bad will ever come of that, right? This is a strike, but it is integrated within the campaign. I think it's a fun strike that very cleverly brings back an old Destiny 1 villain a la Cool, the Darkblade, repurposed now as the Lightblade. And as mentioned in the strike, in his previous life, he was an enemy of Oryx, who once tried to dethrone him but failed. So it is kind of ironic that he is charged with guarding Oryx's temple. Another interesting note that is, upon killing him, his ghost kind of escapes, which is concerning and has not yet been followed up on to my knowledge. This is a very cool mission. On some pretty dodgy intel, we travel into the ruins of the throne world to visit the Temple of Sathona. This being dedicated to the past of Savathun before she was the Witch Queen, before she was even Hive. The temple is intentionally buried deep as we continue to see a theme of structures in the light being the memories she wants to keep, but the swamp and the darkness being from paths she would rather rid herself from. After some deep sight tricks, we reach the temple, and this just looks straight out of hell, with orange flame-like depths, and gothic ruined structures, it's very clear that this place was meant to be forgotten. Changing subjects here a little bit, I want to talk about Finch. Now, it's pretty clear that he is the comic relief character of the story, and I have seen this annoy some people, what with him trying to make bets as to what the object we're searching for is while we are in unknown territory. For me personally, it doesn't really bother me, as I don't see the stakes being that high. If he were cracking jokes in, say, the final mission, then I think that would be a problem. However, that's not what he's doing here. But I do admit, Finch did pave the way for a certain Cloud Strider that will remain nameless. Continuing on, we kill some Scorn and eventually retrieve Sithona's worm familiar. But who could predict that a real Ahamkara would come back and attack us? Wait, just kidding. It's a fake one. But still really cool to see them reuse Riven from Last Wish over here. I wish they would have used a little bit more of Riven's mechanics, but still it makes for a pretty unique boss fight in this campaign. Upon killing it, we use some Scorn Pikes to ride out before some timer can kill us. It's a very energetic sequence and very cool. However, upon completion, we are unable to take the worm to the Altar of Reflection for whatever reason, so we shelve it for another day. In between missions, a bait ensues between Zavala and Ikora, with Zavala not liking how Ikora has made so many judgment calls on her own throughout the campaign. Admitting to perhaps having clouded judgment, Ikora steps back while Zavala and Eris run tactical on the next mission. Here we invade the Apocryphy, a location within Savathun's throne world reserved for wicked Lucent Hive experiments. We also hear much of Zavala's protest to using the darkness, still of the belief that using the darkness can lead to corruption. This is a stance we have seen him take before, most notably in Beyond Light, as there he did not want us using stasis because of its direct connection to the darkness. Zavala has always been headstrong in his beliefs, as he is the stoic leader of the Vanguard, but deep down he's really trying to hold it all together. Our alliances, the tower, and himself. Our reason for storming the Apocryphy, man I hope I'm saying that right still, is to find a piece of crystal shard that was with Savathun during her time encased by the Awoken. Marasov is responsible for giving us this information. So, we fight up the tower, killing one of Savathun's right-hand witches, and eventually claim the shard. We take the shard back to the Altar of Reflection, which leads to one of my favorite cutscenes that will now be played in its entirety.
I saw the end before it happened. My own death, brought on by the separation from my power. And in these final moments, I looked to the sky. Hello, old friend. I've chased you for a long time. First as an enemy, then as a collector, and finally, now, a supplicant. What is it the Guardians say? Devotion inspires bravery. Bravery inspires sacrifice. And sacrifice... Here we are. Wouldn't it be clever of you if after everything, you simply let me die? What a trick. Elegant. Is that it? If there is an answer, I don't hear it. Because now the world begins to fade. incredible that I could forget something like that, isn't it? Such a storied life, erased. The light offers us a fresh start, but if we don't know where we came from, how will we know where to go? I'm so grateful to you for reminding me, for telling my story.
Wait. What is she talking about?
She remembers. We helped her remember.
Thanks for the memories, Guardian.
We have to leave.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. Here we have Savathun, who has cleansed herself from the worm inside of her, essentially forfeiting her life. And in her final moments, she spends them at the feet of the Traveler, and even refers to herself as a supplicant. This is Savathun praying to the Traveler in her final moments, even stating how ironic it would be for the Traveler to just let her die. It would certainly save us a lot of trouble, but that's not what happens. A ghost comes along and resurrects her. Savathun, a guardian of the light. Savathun's plan was to die here, and have faith that the Traveler would revive her. And even in her final moments, she does not know that this will work, saying how she doesn't hear the answer. I mean, wow, if she wasn't framed as a villain, that would be a remarkable story of faith. Except maybe the part where she doesn't know if it will work in the end. But then again, this is Savathun. I imagine she probably knew very well what she was doing here. Unfortunately, that shadowy looming figure of Savathun that we've seen in all of our past meetings with the Altar of Reflection was actually Savathun. And as the light has made her forget her past life, in our quest to uncover the truth, we have reminded Savathun of her life, and thus her evil plot continues. This is very damning to the Vanguard as to why the Traveler would resurrect such a terrible enemy. But we continue to fight back and protect the Traveler, which leads us to uncover the secret of Savathun's worm familiar in another cutscene that will now be played.
These frail siblings will soon be claimed by the light. Unless we claim them first, we will tell the most cunning sibling of Cataclysm, a prophecy of great loss. We will feed her fear, her pride. We will say, young Sathona, the end is coming. A great cataclysm. A god wave. In the sky, there is only death. But salvation lies in the deep. Lead your sisters down. Your cunning will spare their short lives. And you will be reborn, the Witch Queen, Savathun.
They were tricked. The Hive were lied to.
This tells us the truth of the Hive's origin. They were to be claimed by the Traveler in the Light, and would have most likely entered a golden age similar to the Elixni and humanity. But the Witness intervened, and halted this by deceiving the Hive into believing that the Traveler brought only death, and the only way to survive was to join the darkness, thus creating an endless cycle of hunger in the form of hive worms that must be fed. The Witness tricked Savathun, and Savathun was ultimately wrong to trust the darkness from the very beginning. The Hive God of Tricks was tricked. This is the final mission in the story. We invade the throne world only to find that the Traveler is already in the clutches of Savathun. Our mission is to sever the spell and return the Traveler back home safely. Ikora meets us and shows us why she's the Warlock Vanguard, while we go and storm Savathun's castle, fighting our way to the top. After playing a couple games of which one's the right door, we find ourselves approaching the top of Savathun's tower. and after fighting several Lucent Hive Guardians, we come into a battle with Savathun. And after again seemingly defeating Savathun, she tricks us, casts a spell on us to make us slow, and gets away. From where we are, we can see the final arena, and it is a very cool shot. Savathun extends a bridge to us, inviting us to finally fight her at last. On our way to the final arena, our ghost speaks out against Savathun. Angrily, our ghost condemns the Witch Queen, recalling all of her prior sins as we march to fight her one last time. On a bit of a lighter note, depending on how long you've been with Destiny, you get different dialogue options, which is actually very cool. Coming into a direct battle with Savathun, she's too powerful for us. But luckily for us, she left an Altar of Reflection table right in her spell room, and we distract her by playing the memory of the Worm Familiar, showing Savathun how she was tricked. This makes her very angry and throws her off her game, allowing for us to disrupt the spell. We go back and forth and fight Savathun by killing some of her Broodweavers and getting a stacking buff that allows us to do more damage to Savathun. And after a long, intense, and wonderful boss fight, we finally defeat the Witch Queen at last.
Isn't this interesting? I miscalculated. So did you, Guardian. So protective of your traveler that you wouldn't let me keep it safe. But the witness is coming. The game is yours to play now. Yours to win or lose. Just don't say I didn't warn you.
No. Where did your ghost go?
Guardian, I just got the message. The Traveler is back in the last city. Is it done? Is Savathun...
She's dead. But her ghost got away.
Good enough. Hold your position. The Hidden are coming to secure the remains. Good work, Guardian. You did the right thing.
Now what?
Now, we prepare for the witness and stop the next collapse.
For the most part, this concludes the story of the Witch Queen. A few epilogue quest lines are available to gain exotics and to tie up a few loose ends, most notably the Worm Familiar of Savathun, which, in typical Destiny fashion, we put inside of a gun and shoot it. The 6-player activity The Wellspring was also launched in continuing efforts to contain the Throne World, but also as a pathway to gain the 3 class-specific exotic glaives, which are kind of lackluster. But what do I think of this story? Well, simply put, I think it's the best campaign in Destiny. From the exciting yet challenging level design to the compelling story with great overarching themes, it's incredible. And before I finish talking about the campaign, let me say that this is also the first time Bungie introduced the Legendary Campaign, a unique, harder version of the story where negative modifiers are active, keeping you under light and at a constant disadvantage. And I have to say, this makes for a challenging campaign, and I love it. Not to mention the fact that missions give more rewards, and upon completing the entire campaign on Legendary difficulty, you receive an emblem and a choice of one of 2 exotic armor pieces from the DLC. But this is a retrospective of the Witch Queen DLC, and not just the campaign. Many new things were introduced this year. The weapon archetype of the glaive, which is a hybrid melee and projectile weapon. Origin traits, which have been present on every legendary weapon since the launch of the Witch Queen. and weapon crafting, which has sparked some controversy in the community, as some think it takes the fun out of replaying and grinding activities for weapons. But after many revamps later, I think it turned out alright. And of course, the amazing revamps in the form of Subclass 3.0, starting out with Void on launch, Solar in the subsequent season of the Haunted, and Arc in the following season of the Plunder. Vow of the Disciple. I will not go into too much detail, as this more deserves its own topic, but I will say that this is my personal favorite raid. I love the mechanics, I love the bosses, I love the environment, and I love the guns. I mean, I practically use Forbearance with everything nowadays. But yes, I do agree the beginning is a bit annoying, and I'm never wearing that raid armor. There also was the controversy surrounding the day one, as many teams, I think pretty much every team, was getting error coded out of the game over and over again, to the point where Bungie extended the contest window by another 24 hours, which was a huge hot take, but it has been a reoccurring thing ever since to make it a 48-hour contest window. I did attempt to complete the raid on contest mode using only LFG, and I got as far as the final boss himself, but I had school the next day, so I had to call it. Still though, my favorite raid of all time. Love you and your 27 different symbols. And so here we are, at the end of the Witch Queen. It's no wonder that this is considered to be one of, if not the best, DLC Bungie has ever released for a Destiny title. From its captivating story, its lore, its weapons, and the overall state of the game, things were really great back then. I have very fond memories playing this expansion for the first time, with my cousin who kept chanting "Take back the light," and again with friends. We were filled with hope that Bungie had finally delivered the best story to date, and we couldn't wait for them to do it again next year. Man, that was a long one. But hey, I appreciate you sticking around. I know this is very different than the content you're used to, but don't worry, I'm not done with that stuff. I have very big plans for this channel, especially as we approach March, which is the 2-year anniversary of my channel. Hey, look at that, just like the Witch Queen. But really, I appreciate your support, and if you could subscribe, it would mean the world to me. Let me know down below in the comments your favorite memories from the Witch Queen DLC. And well, just thank you everyone, and I will see you in the next one.
We have seen enough. The children of Soul cry out for salvation. You promise them life, but deliver only death, as you have for so many before. Enough. Enough death. Enough life. You have no pieces left to place. The game is over. Do not be afraid. Your pain